All right, before we get started, I just wanted to say I put FBA in the title, but I'm not really going to be talking and spending a whole lot of time talking about them. I put them in the title because I will be mentioning them, but more so because I'll be talking to a lot of their talking points throughout, this little quick piece, this little quick video. Speaking on the FBA, which stands for Foundational Black Americans, it was a term coined by Tariq Nasheed, who kind of, I'm not gonna lie, he kind of usurped the ADOS movement, the ADOS, American Descendants of Slaves. He kind of usurped that movement and replaced it with Foundational Black Americans. And the whole premise of the FBA or Foundational Black Americans is to delineate. A lot of people don't understand that word. I ain't gonna lie, the first time I heard that word, I'm like, delineate, like to de-align, but delineate to specifically, you know, differentiate, to point something out, to make something specific, I guess, for lack of better terms. I guess I should have just pulled up the dictionary term, but from my understanding, that's exactly what the word means. It's pretty much to differentiate yourself from, the rest of the diaspora, I guess, or just black people, because I don't know what they consider the diaspora, or even if they consider themselves part of the diaspora, because it seems like in this whole idea of differentiating, they have separated themselves from the diaspora. I'm not an FBA. I don't adhere to the ideology of the FBA. I know they say they're a lineage, which we'll get into that in a second. But so I don't want to speak for them in any way. So if I'm incorrect on any of my statements that I attribute to the FBA, someone who's part of the FBA can, hop in the comments or whatever and clear that up. No problem. FBA, Pan-Africanism, African American ethnicity. If you notice, there's nothing in verses, because this is not about which is better. This is not a versus against or none of that. I'm talking about the different things and the relation between them, not the battle that's going on, which I don't even think is an actual necessary battle. Now, real quick, just to speak to the lineage aspect of the FBA. When we talk about lineage, we know that it's the line that you come from. That's your bloodline. That's your family line, or your line as a people, as a tribe, as a culture. Where does it come from? Now, to say that as a black man or African American, which is my ethnicity, to say that as an African American, that my lineage starts at the foundation, or yes, basically the foundation or the founding of America, or even starts with America, period, would be insane. When my lineage, like as a people, we are ancient. We are way older than America. Now, the idea of that, our experience, which through the Mayafa, I know some of y'all want to get into this whole idea of being Aboriginal or indigenous to the Americas. I'll make a whole nother video about that ridiculousness in itself. But the idea but when we're talking about the experience from the Maafa and being in America, from chattel slavery all the way up until now, and the struggles and experiences that we've shared as a people, yes, this definitely distinguishes us from the diaspora. This definitely makes us a distinguished, a different group of Africans from the diaspora. But this is not, the Jamaicans or the whole Caribbeans are a different group of Africans. The brothers and sisters in Europe have a different experience. So we all have a unique experience wearing your ethnicity as a badge with some pride behind it. This is where we get into ethnicity now. African American. Now, you hear the argument that, well, Barack Obama's an African American. Charlize Theron is an African American. Get the fuck out of here with that bullshit. Like, I don't know how stupid y'all realize y'all sound with this whole notion that Barack Obama would be considered an African American. That's just ridiculous because his father came from Kenya and he is um, the son of a Kenyan immigrant. Therefore, wouldn't he be a Kenyan American? See, you never hear no African, whether they been here and got naturalized, the citizenship, whether they're second or third generation, but you never hear an African. You never hear a brother from Ghana, Cameroon, or Nigeria refer to himself as an African American. You niggas never heard that shit in your life. Cut it the hell out. And now Elon Musk, I didn't say his name specifically because Elon Musk might have said some shit like that just to troll y'all dumbasses. Because he know how y'all get and getting y'all feelings or whatever. So Elon might have said something like that just to be trolling. But whenever any group of people are talking about African Americans, they talking about us. Whenever any group of people are talking about Black Americans, they talking about us. You'll never hear a Jamaican, a Nigerian, a Haitian, someone from Trinidad talk about African Americans, and they're talking about a whole different group of people. They're talking about some African immigrants that then migrated to America. You ain't never heard that in your life. Our ethnicity has been just that, African American. And the reason being is because we recognize our African lineage. We're talking about this word lineage, right? So we recognize our African lineage. We recognize our African story, our African origins. But we also recognize that we are a distinct African from the diaspora. Our experiences here, just like how the FBA talks about this, our experience here has made us a different type of African. Yes, our bloodline is still African. We still have African ancestry, African DNA, but we have a lot of other things going on culturally. And we also, from our shared experience in this nation, have developed our own culture based on just that, based on the geography and based on the shared oppression that we've been dealt with by the hands of these Euro demons. So we've had our own culture that we have created, and our culture wasn't just created out of thin air. We didn't just come to America and all of a sudden we forgot everything about who we were prior to this nation. So we came to America and we brought a lot of Africa with us to America that even in today can still be seen. And that's the problem. A lot of people want to deny that. They want to deny the African roots and a lot of things, and they want to just put it on this Africa, or they want to just put it on this American experience when it's an African American experience. And I have no problem with the term Black American either. They're both synonymous. They both speak to who the people are. So when you say Black American, African American, we already know, just like everybody else on the planet knows, they're talking about us. Nobody else. They're talking about us. You know, a lot of these guys who have adopted this ideology seem to have a disdain for Pan-Africanism, especially a lot of the people who were at once Pan-Africans or talking all this Black power, you know, out loud type stuff with the red, black, and the green flag. And all of a sudden now Pan-Africanism has become this failed idea. It's become this failed dream or something that's been holding us back as a people. One of the biggest arguments I hear is that it's Black Americans who have been contributing and participating the most in Pan-Africanism. It's not a cooperative effort. It's basically on the backs of Black Americans. One of the biggest problems I've noticed, though, with a lot of these people who speak these things, they don't really know what Pan-Africanism truly is. They don't have a real idea. They're basing their branch of Pan-Africanism on the group or organizations that they specifically themselves was moving in. So when these movements and these groups that these people weren't actually moving shit or didn't move the goalposts, as I hear a lot of them comment, because when you speak to one of them, you almost speak to all of them. And this is no disrespect to a lot of brothers, but when you start talking about this, the African American, the Africans, ain't nobody participating in Pan-African. Like, these are the talking points of my brothers and sisters that are part of the FBA. Most of them, not all of them, but these are most of the talking points. But it's funny because a lot of these people don't really have a true understanding of Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism is an idea. Pan-Africanism is an idea. It's an idea and it's an ideal. It's very ideological. We're dealing in the ideology of hopes and aims. So when you look at the ideology of Pan-Africanism, it's the aim of Pan-Africanism. Now, what does aim mean, right? Aim is when you pointing at something, you looking at something, you trying to hit a mark, something that you haven't got to yet. You're aiming. You haven't hit that mark yet. You haven't fired the shot to hit the mark. You're aiming to hit this mark, though, right? So the aim of Pan-Africanism is to encourage solidarity amongst the African diaspora, right? So what does that mean? If the aim is to encourage, that means that the solidarity actually didn't exist. So we're not looking at a unified front. We're looking at the idea of a unified front. We're looking at the aim of a unified front. We're looking at expressions that will encourage a unified front. Not to say that the unified front is there. Now, anybody who deals in Pan-Africanism or any type of what we consider, I guess, consciousness, awareness, Black powerism, you know that you're the outcast. I can go into any Black community right now throughout the country. Pan-Africanism is not practiced. It is not practiced. I'm not going to go to any city in this country. I'm not saying I won't see any, but I'm not going to go to any city in this country and just be riding down blocks and blocks where I see people waving red, black, and green flags with this pride in being a Pan-African. And we talking about in America. I'm not going to see that in America. Most people know that even amongst your own family, unless you was born into this, amongst your own family, you're looked at as an extremist. You're looked at as that Black power guy. So this idea that anywhere else is supposed to be different, this idea that we're supposed to go to Africa and we're supposed to see something that we're not seeing over here. We're supposed to see most Africans, when we know the small percentage of Black Americans, African Americans that adhere to Pan-Africanism, but we want to go over there and we want to see more of them than there is of us. We want to go over there and see something that doesn't really exist. We want Wakanda, right? That's what it is. We want Wakanda and then get mad that they didn't create Wakanda and that Pan-Africanism is now dead. Pan-Africanism is now a cult. When the same percentage of Black people throughout Africa, which is a much bigger population of Black people, right? So it's probably even a smaller percentage, but we want to have a problem with that when we know that we're the minority, period, and we're supposed to be seeking out that minority. You know what I'm saying? It's only 5% out of 100, but you looking for that 85% though. You dig? You looking for the 85%, and then saying, well, there's not enough. There's not enough of y'all doing this work that we doing. This ain't working. When there's not enough of us over here doing the work to make it work. If you want to really get technical, and to the argument about Pan-Africanism, most people don't know, they don't know past Garveyism. They don't know past Marcus Garvey and Garveyism. And Garveyism is a branch of Pan-Africanism, but it's not the entirety. Garveyism is not the entirety of Pan-Africanism, but it is definitely one of the strongest branches. So when I start talking to people about Pan-Africanism, I'll be wanting to know, what do you really know? Like, if I mention the Casablanca block or the Brazzaville block, like, are you gonna know what I'm talking about? Or are you just gonna go back into your rhetoric, your repeated rhetoric that you do? And this goes for anybody. I'm not talking about no group specifically. I'm talking about those who seem to have an issue with the idea of Pan-Africanism and want to actually now speak out against Pan-Africanism like it's been this evil thing, or it's been something that's been holding us back, or like it's some type of CIA or government constructed movement or something. When Pan-Africanism is not a movement. It's an ideology that has spanned plenty of movements. Some movements practice holistically Pan-Africanism, and some groups took the pieces that fit for them. You know, some groups outright was practicing Pan-Africanism. You had other groups that were practicing different types of socialist ideas mixed with Pan-Africanism and whatnot. You had the extreme anti-white Pan-Africanists. You had, and like I said, you had the hardcore social left Pan-Africanists. So it's not all as an ideology, it's not all the same. It's not. You know, we recognize Marcus Garvey as the godfather, but he's not the forefather. You know, we had all types of Pan-African movements going back to the 18th century. There was the Sons of Africa in London, which was like in the late 1700s. Henry Sylvester Williams established the Pan-African Association in 1897, having the first Pan-African Congress in London in 1900. Henry Sylvester Williams himself being from Trinidad, so he wasn't even a Black American. So we see the concentrated effort from Africans throughout the diaspora to build this thing that we know as Pan-Africanism, and you know, ultimately our participation, which ultimately led to our participation. However, Black Americans were always there. This was always part of our plight, always part of our struggle. So when people sit there and they act like these things never existed, or that the OAU, the Organization of African Unity, didn't exist, you know, which was started in 1963. I believe they're based right now in Ethiopia, if I'm not mistaken. And then you had the African Union, which was also known as the Pan-African Union, which was originally a Pan-African movement. Well, it's definitely got co-opted. Well, if you remember, Muammar Gaddafi, who was head of the African Union when he was assassinated, had decided that they were going to create their own currency based off of the minerals and resources in the African soil, which we already know the effect that this would have had on the world economy, like the global economy. The trajectory of the global economy would have been changed forever if this would have happened. We would have really seen a United States of Africa. This wouldn't have been like we talk about Wakanda. We would have really had Wakanda for real. I mean, just imagine if there was a universal dollar in Africa, kind of like how the euro, what they did in Europe, but they took this dollar and they said, we're going to take the coltan, the copper, the uranium, the silver, the gold, the diamonds, and all the other resources that we have in the African ground, and we're going to back our currency up with that. We would have had real currency. This would have been real currency. You understand what I'm saying? So people don't realize this was all in the name of Pan-Africanism. When you see the Sahel states in Africa right now, when you see Ibrahim Traoré, when you see what's going on in Burkina Faso, when you see what's going on in Niger, you see the bombing that they're doing in Nigeria right now. All of this is because of a Pan-African movement that's taking place on the African continent right now as we speak. So when people say Pan-Africanism is dead, your version of Pan-Africanism is dead. Your romanticized idea of what Pan-Africanism was is dead. But when you see the flag, the red, black, and green flag, that flag was to say that I am a representative of that aim that we spoke about, the aim to encourage that solidarity. I am one of those who aim to encourage the solidarity of African people throughout the diaspora. That's what you see when you see that red, black, and green flag. It's to recognize I'm with you. We have that ideology. I look at you as my brother. You from Haiti, you from Trinidad, you from the Ivory Coast. You my brother because we share a common history and we share a common destiny, ultimately. And these are the things that Pan-Africanism brought to the table. And these are the goals and the aims of Pan-Africanism and of a true Pan-Africanist. It's the idea of this unity and the encouragement of that, and to strive to gain that, and to take the victories as you can take them. I don't think there needs to be a beef between people who feel like they should be calling themselves FBA and those who call themselves Pan-Africanists. I don't see where the beef is unless you're specifying words now, unless there's something bigger than that. Unless the reason why it's FBA is to remove the Africa. It's to say we have nothing to do with Africa. We're not the children of Africa. We are not a different kind of African. We are not a distinct African, but we are in fact American. Then we get into something different. And I can understand the Pan-Africans who say, well, we're not American. You know, we're the victims of America, as Malcolm X once said. But we're not American. I can see that argument and them having the problem with America. Me personally, I understand land and the connection that I have to this land. I understand that I am of this soil. I was born in America, but I am an African person. I am of African people. I'm of African descent. Africa is in my DNA. And that's not to call someone a generic African. We are African Americans. So when I hear that we're supposed to be generic Africans, no, we have an identity. We're African Americans. We're Black Americans. Why didn't we wear that with pride? Why did we decide that now we have to become something else because that wasn't enough? Why did we allow being an African American to not be respected? Why did we not allow being a Black American at the point that now we have to call ourselves foundational Black Americans? Okay, so you saying your black ass was here since the beginning of the founding of America. Well, maybe. And then you got the other ones who out there who are talking this other nonsense, saying that they absolutely aren't African. But if you look at what they're trying to say, then not only aren't you African, but y'all not even Black. So if you're not even Black, what is you doing in the circle? If you're not Black, you need to be at the powwow. You need to be at the reservation with your peoples. But you don't need to be amongst us talking this confusion, talking this, I know I'm not African, but you're not Black neither. Because really, that's really how it boils down. You're not African, you're really not Black. That's really what it boils down to. I can trace my history back. I can trace my roots back. As an African American, we have an ethnicity. We have an ethnicity that goes further back than Jesse Jackson. That's already been disproven. The word African American, the term African American, can be traced all the way back into the 1800s.